So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the shooting modes on your camera. Explain to you that the big scary manual mode is the way that you should go to learn your camera settings. I know that might sound a bit a bit crazy to some people, but as we go through the video, you'll hopefully be able to see what I'm talking about and that it's not actually as scary as we sometimes think. So the main shooting modes will be full automatic, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual modes. So I think what I see suggested the most would be for beginners to either shoot in aperture priority or full auto. Now, if you're shooting in full auto, basically your camera takes care of everything. You point, you shoot, and you don't have any control over any of the settings. And then the idea is then that you would upload your photographs and study all the settings and figure out what your camera is doing. Now this didn't really work for me because it didn't make anything any clearer for me. It may work for you, and if it does, that's fantastic. Now if you're going to use aperture priority mode, the first thing I just want to say is about your ISO. So we always want to try and keep our ISO as low as possible to prevent noise from happening at larger numbers. Now, there are plenty of tables online where it shows you what your base ISOs should be depending on the light, the external light that you have outside. Like for example, if it's a bright, clear day, your ISO is probably going to be like maybe from 100 to maybe 400, depends on shadows and stuff. And then if it's like a little overcast outside or dim, your ISO might go 4 to 800 maybe. But I would suggest putting your camera into auto ISO and not worrying about it. The camera will fluctuate depending on what aperture you pick and the external light, and then obviously the camera then will pick the shutter speed that it feels is correct to expose your photograph. So if I grab my other camera here and I go to aperture priority, and I'm on f8 here at the moment, and I have my auto ISO on, and if I point my camera over to the shadows over here, it's giving me an ISO reading of 3200, and it's giving me a shutter speed of 1/6. And then if I point it out into the daylight, change it again, brings my ISO down to 100 and a shutter speed of 1/100 of seconds. So just by that you can see that your ISO is being looked after and you don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is change your aperture setting, and 9 times out of 10, yes, you will definitely get a balanced exposure. What I don't like about it is that your light meter at the bottom doesn't move, doesn't change. You're taking it that the camera knows it's doing the right thing. I will say that aperture priority mode is a great mode for nighttime. Just drop your aperture down to its lowest value so you get as much light possible on your sensor, and then let the camera worry about the ISO and the shutter speed for you. And then something else with aperture priority mode, just that's probably worthy of a mention, is that your camera doesn't know whether or not you want to have motion in your photograph or if you want everything frozen. Let's say like you're here in New York and you're out on the streets and you want to get a moving taxi frozen in time. The problem is with that, it might be too slow to freeze that taxi. You might need to up your shutter speed. And in aperture priority mode, the only way to do that is in your settings under your ISO sensitivity. It gives you an option to set a base shutter speed. So you would need to go in there and set your shutter speed to, depending on your camera, depending on how stable you are holding it. But you probably want to be at 1/250th of a second. So what that means is when you're in aperture priority mode, your shutter speed will not go below 1/250th or 1/500th of a second or 1/1000, whatever you set that number to. For me, I'm always in auto ISO and I have my minimum shutter speed set to 1/500 for pretty much everything. And then similarly, shutter speed priority mode. As you know, you control the shutter speed, your camera controls the ISO and your aperture. And again, if I was in shutter speed, which I never really do, I would have it on auto ISO and then let the camera take care of the aperture. And then similarly, in shutter speed mode, you may have a depth of field issue where, again, your camera's going to pick it for you, but your camera doesn't know whether you want depth of field or not. If it's bright outside, it's going to pick a higher aperture value, so you may have less blur in your photograph if that's what you're going for. And then if it's dark outside, it's going to drop your aperture possibly, so you're going to have blur in your photograph. And unfortunately, there isn't an option on shutter speed priority mode to set your aperture value to a particular number. So if you're photographing birds in flight, or you're at the racetrack doing cars, set your shutter speed to the value that you want, your ISO on automatic, and then just let your aperture be selected by the camera. So then we come to my mode of choice, manual mode. The reason I like to use manual mode is that it gives me the control, obviously, and because I have my light meter, I can see when I'm underexposed, overexposed. I have my camera in auto ISO with a minimum shutter speed of 1/500, and then I can select both my aperture and my shutter speed. I get to see exactly where my settings need to be. Faster shutter speed, freeze motion; slower shutter speed for motion. If I want everything in focus and depth of field, up to f11. If I want blur, I drop my aperture down. So many photographers use a variety of modes. Professionals don't all use manual mode. It's all about getting out there and practicing. I just found that manual mode showed me the information that I needed and helped me learn a lot faster.